Hello, our podcast subscribers and friends of the internet. I want to welcome you back to our second episode of the Mish podcast. And this one, well, first of all, I want to thank you guys for listening to this. And then for those of you that heard our first episode, I appreciate you for doing that as well. And if you're not subscribed to this podcast, there's a few places where our podcast is listed. If you're on iOS, you can search for Mish in the iTunes podcast directory. And on Android, you can search in Google Play as well as Stitcher Radio. You can also go to mollymish.com/podcast to subscribe to this podcast so you'll never miss an episode. And today, I am coming to you guys from an Airbnb in the city of Ostend, Belgium. We've been here for about 5 days now, I think, and we are here for at least another 3 days, possibly 4. We had to extend our stay here by a couple of days because we're waiting for our van to arrive by the freighter. And the freighter is right now coming from Germany back to Belgium after it came across the ocean from Baltimore where we left her. Probably 2.5 weeks ago now. The first week, our van pretty much stayed in the yard at the port of Baltimore, where it just kind of sat and waited for the boat to show up and waited for all the logistics to get worked out. And it got loaded onto the boat. And because we have our website on the side of the van, we had some longshoremen who worked on the boat, worked to help strap actually drive the van onto the car freighter, and also the folks that helped strap it down onto the platform. 2 of them took pictures of it and sent it to us, which I thought was pretty cool. If you go to mollymish.com/podcast, click on this episode, which will be episode number 2, I will post those pictures up there for you. So I want to sort of go into a little bit more of this experience of shipping the van across and our experience of moving, catching the flight. And for those of you that follow us on Instagram and Facebook, you guys will know that we had a pretty big event in our lives and in our family that happened in the last few days. And we'll discuss a little bit of that too, which is our cat Yoda's passing. And for those of you that follow us in our stories on Instagram, there is a lot more detail. And if you go to our Instagram account, which is instagram.com/molly.mish, it is one of the highlight stories on the top strip, and it's called Yoda. And you guys can find out some more detail about what we've been through these last couple of days. But today, we actually have the whole family here. So I want to go around and have everybody introduce themselves. And obviously the first person you know was my co-host, and she was on episode 1.
Hi, this is Marlene. I don't know if I'm a co-host. I might be more of a sidekick.
Same thing. Right, she's my Andy Richter to me as Conan. And then we'll go, just so you guys know how we're seated around this table. We're at our little tiny studio. It's a flat. How tall is this building? 5 stories? 6 stories maybe?
It might be 6.
5 or 6 stories. It's in the town of Ostend, Belgium, like I mentioned earlier. We rented this place on Airbnb. Oh, 7? Really?
Mm-hmm.
Mila said it's a 7.
Kids are all putting up their fingers because they're trying not to interrupt, but they're all showing us 7. Mommy and Daddy were wrong.
It was 7 on the elevator.
Okay, so there's 7 floors here. And we're about, I want to say, maybe 1,000 yards. Maybe, no, actually less. Probably like 300 yards from the beach. We just have to kind of walk, around the building to get to the beach. And it's a really nice place, modern, well clean, well equipped. The Airbnb host initially thought it would be too small for us, but it actually is a decent sized place. It has 3 beds. It's pretty cool. Maybe we can put a photo of this place up too, for you guys to check out. It's probably like 70. I would say it's probably 50 feet, 40 feet long, and maybe 12 feet wide. Right, so that's roughly. So that's about 50 square feet. No? Or is that 500? No, it's about, sorry. It's about 500 square feet. Maybe a little bit less, actually. But it was nice. It was only about $60 a night. And our initial concern with the van taking so long to get here from Baltimore was, where we're going to stay. We don't know anything about the logistics. We had to figure all that out. So we didn't book anything till we got here. And then we stayed in Baltimore like 3 weeks almost. And I think ended up being much cheaper had we just come here to stay. So anyways, we'll get into that a little bit later. So I'll go around again to introduce everybody who is on this podcast today.
Okay, sitting on my lap is...
Luca.
Your name's Luca?
Yeah.
How old are you?
6. Ava, and I'm 11. I'm Mila, and I'm 9.
Oh, you didn't say 8.
Good job.
No,
She just turned 9 like 3 weeks ago.
I almost
Did you want to say 8? So, if you guys are new to following us or new to this podcast, Luca, Ava, and Mila are our 3 kids. And Ava was 1 when we started traveling. Mila was, so each time Marlene was pregnant, we went back to our hometown of Ventura, California, and stayed for the pregnancy so that they can be delivered in the same hospital. So Mila started traveling when she was 5 months old, after she was born. And then Luca started traveling when he was 3 months old, after he was born. So for the most part, these kids, they've lived on the road. And of course, while we were waiting for Mila to be born, Ava had a little bit more time spending in Ventura. She had a little bit, daycare, a little bit more like sort of what you would call traditional life in a town for those months. And then Mila got a little bit taste of that too when Marlene was pregnant with Luca. But Luca is 100% almost pure road baby.
Who remembers living in a house?
Not me.
Not you.
I do.
Well, you do. So Mila, you remember a little bit? And Ava, you remember?
A lot.
Do you remember the room we had for you in our old house?
I remember the layout of the house. I remember that we had to, because someone wanted to move in there too. We only had the playroom, the dress-up room. And Daddy had to build a kitchen.
That's actually after Luca was born. That is when you were already, I think, that was 2015. So you're already 5 years old. No, 6 years old then. That's when we thought we were done traveling. Is when we bought our house by Nuna's house in LA. And we ended up deciding that we weren't done, so that's why we never lived in that house.
But we had a house before in Ventura.
Do you remember being in Ventura?
And then there was Stevie.
Yeah, we had a stray cat named Stevie.
It wasn't he like the town cat?
Kind of. A neighborhood cat.
The neighborhood cat.
Yeah.
Yeah, Luca?
And I remember Ava told me she remembered that Ava told Mommy when she was sleeping she felt spiders crawling on her.
What?
No.
We lived in a house full of spiders?
There's a spider. I remember there's in the corner there's spiders, and I just climbed down into my bed, and you guys had to find the spider in my bed sometimes.
Was it a radioactive spider?
Are you spider girl?
It was like I was in the corner in the room, and then there's in the corners spiders hide in the corners of the place.
Yeah.
And sometimes they call that. Luca would hate that.
I don't remember.
Oh my
that
God,
at
Luca
all.
would freak. He would scream.
That's his biggest fear.
Yeah. But he never really lived in that house because by the time he was born, we were living for the 3 months after he was born, we were living in the Airstream that we used to travel in on the driveway as we were getting the place ready to sell. So for that house, we kept the whole time we were traveling with the girls, and we finally decided to sell it after Luca was born.
We needed a place to we needed a place to be pregnant in. And so we knew we wanted three kids, so we weren't ready to sell it until the third kid showed up.
And when he showed up, we out of here.
And we weren't against moving back to Ventura for the longest time. It's not like we left to go travel because we didn't like living in Ventura. You know, we still really loved the town and wouldn't mind moving back there again. But it was just, there's just so much more to see. So that's our introduction to everybody who's on this podcast. And I guess in the future, we could have guests that are not part of our family. We could have people that we meet on the road. We could have people that we bring in from FaceTime or Skype or Google Hangout or whatever. But, you know, we're kind of experimenting with how the format of this podcast goes. And I think the first one, episode 1, went pretty well. It was short. It was about 30 minutes. But I think, you know, that's probably a good length for people to digest. It was a good introduction about us. So we're adding a little bit more to that. But what we want to do in this one and in a lot of the future episodes is to talk about just the things that have happened in our lives on the road between the time that we're recording, which is now, and the last upload of the podcast. So we can kind of catch you guys up to date. As I mentioned in the last episode too, but I want this to be a more in-depth record of the things that we're unable to share with you guys otherwise through different types of medium. So if we go back to where we were in episode 1, we were in the hotel room in a Best Western Hotel just outside of Dulles International Airport, outside of Washington, D.C. We were about to leave. It was the night before we boarded our flight that flew us from Dulles Airport to Copenhagen, Denmark. And from Copenhagen, Denmark, we had a pretty long layover, and then we took a connection flight from there to Brussels. And then we had to find a way to get to this Airbnb here. That was a really long day. And on top of it all, you know, we had to deal with the whole time we were in the Washington, D.C. area. We had to figure out whether or not our cat Yoda was going to be able to travel because she had sort of been deteriorating health-wise for a couple of weeks. And there were times when we thought that it was the end, but then more times than not, she really acted like her old self again. So, you know, there were so many signs where we really felt like that we couldn't just leave her behind. And in fact, we'll upload a photo that we took from that hotel in Best Western the night before we got on the flight. And Marlene and I just laid in our bed holding the microphone, recording that first episode. And there was Yoda sitting on Marlene's lap the whole time we were recording, looking like her old self. So, and I wanted to kind of get everybody's take on how it was for you to travel, and I can kind of provide the timeline. I can kind of provide the more specific details of the travel. You guys can kind of tell us what it was like for you. Okay? So, our flight from Dulles, we were able to take a shuttle from the Best Western, carrying all of our stuff, and we have all of our stuff that we need, and we've been living basically out of a duffel bag and backpacks for the last 3 to 4 weeks. Maybe longer? No, probably about 3 to 4 weeks.
But it's also everything. It was more than we needed because it was what we needed plus things that we really didn't want to get possibly stolen from the van.
Right.
So we had way more than we really would have if we had a place to keep our favorite things.
Right. So, yeah. Let me just maybe add to that in that we're not sure exactly how the shipping thing will turn out yet. Even though we've gone through probably 90% of the shipping process, we know what it takes to get our van back from the shipping company on Tuesday. And we're recording this on a Saturday evening. And we won't know until we get our car back what condition it's in. So we don't know if somebody has gone in there and like ransacked our place, tore it out, you know, like stole things or ran into things or whatever. So we can't really definitively tell you how this experience is so far in this episode. Maybe in the next one we'll be able to tell you. So this one, yeah, this is more about just us as a family of 5 and our cat getting here. So maybe Marlene, maybe you can talk about what it was necessary for Yoda to travel.
For Yoda to travel, she needed to pass a vet screening, so a health screening, to make sure she was physically okay for herself to fly on the airplane, and also that she didn't have a disease that she can pass on to any animals that she would meet here.
So she needed her rabies shots too.
She needed her rabies, and she needed to be healthy enough to fly. And so we went to back and forth with the doctor a little bit because she had to do blood work, and our blood work showed that her kidneys and liver and heart were not in the best condition, and she was dehydrated. So he gave us a bunch of medications and fluids that we can administer ourselves, and we started doing that, and she looked better. So he passed her and got a health certificate for the EU, another piece of paper saying that she passed her inspection. And that piece of paper, the health certificate for the EU, needed to be sent to the USDA office in New York. That was the closest one to us.
Or from DC, we could have driven it down to Richmond, Virginia,
but there was a
which
hurricane
was probably
coming.
Yeah, about 2 hours away.
So,
and because of Hurricane Florence, and we were flying on a Saturday, right?
Sunday.
Right, on a Sunday. And the last day we could have gotten down there was a Thursday. And Thursday was when the hurricane was going to land in North Carolina, Southern Virginia. So
yeah, so we decided that wasn't the best call for us. So we mailed it overnight to the USDA in New York. They said, "Oh, you're missing a paperwork." We're like, "Oh crap!" And so all the kids are looking at me. Crap is not a bad word. But
it's
you can't
not
say
the worst word.
But why'd you say it? It's not a bad word. How come we can't say it? Yeah.
Because you guys have nice manners. Your mama, not so much. And so we
Mama
forgot
says
that.
all kinds of bad words.
And there's only one that I know how to write. Don't say it.
And so we had to send another piece of paper overnight, and we were waiting for that Friday, the last day that they would deliver anything to our hotel, and FedEx would deliver anything to us, and it showed up by like checkout time. So it was perfect. Sent to the hotel.
It wasn't supposed to be until 3 p.m. and we were checking out that day. So they gave us long checkout. They gave us checkout we could like 1 o'clock or 12 o'clock, but it turns out we didn't need it. It got there by like 10:45.
So it worked out. So she needed to have an international chip in her neck. She originally, when she was born, we put something from HomeAway, which is like a domestic company, and that doesn't work for international traveling. So she actually had 2 microchips in her neck, the domestic one and an international one. And that chip needs to be in your animals, implanted into your animal before the rabies is administered. And if that's the first time that that's happening on that chip, it needs to be a certain period, like 30 days or so beforehand. But we already had that. She's always been microchipped. She's always been kept up to date with rabies. So she was ready to go. And we were giving her fluids. She was looking good. The night before her flight, her back legs started to give a little bit. She had trouble walking. Just slightly the night before we flew.
So I think in retrospect and seeing the signs and being able to sort of analyze it in my mind a little bit more, I think it was a lot of things, obviously, but she's always had a little bit of a heart murmur on top of her failing kidneys and problematic liver, but I think the heart murmur got worse, and because when we gave her fluids, subcutaneous fluids, her circulation was not good. Like her heart didn't pump enough pressure around her body to try to circulate those fluids. So they kind of collected in like, the lower portion of her body, like her belly and her feet.
Her front paws were so full of fluid. She kind of looked like a cute cartoon cat.
She was like wearing boxing gloves.
Yeah, it was like squishy, and her paws were super cute. And so I called the doctor, and the doctor's like, well, we need that liquid to flush out her kidneys, but not too much where it's causing...
overwork her heart.
Right. So it was a balance that we were trying to find.
So it kept decreasing the amount that we gave her, and then also
days.
Extending the intervals when we gave it to her.
So we got better at that. And then it was flying day. She was in a backpack carrier. We had all our stuff that we needed, plus our important stuff that we didn't want stolen. And we headed to the airport, and there was 2 legs of the flight. The first one took us from Washington to Copenhagen, and that was an 8-hour flight. What did you guys think about that flight?
It was so long. I got no sleep.
I couldn't sleep.
It felt like took 2 days. Like 10 and then a 9. 10 plus 9 hours.
19 hours?
Yeah, it felt like that much hours.
Well, what did you think about, because the last time you guys flew, and I think Luca's only flown 2 other times besides this. The last times you guys have also, you don't remember, do you remember flying international? Like Mila doesn't remember. She was less than 2 years old. Ava, you were like almost 5, I think. You were 4.5. Last time you flew to Croatia, do you remember flying?
I could remember because I kind of remember sitting down and then there was like this thing where like Mila was like laying in this like...
Yeah.
I kind of remember that could have been a picture.
Could have been a picture, but you have really good memory about stuff like this. So, but the reality is most of you don't have any recollections, if much, or haven't been on an international flight. So I think this was something new for you because of that. And what did you guys think about? We flew Scandinavian Air. Main reason for that is we needed a airline that allowed us to bring our pet as long as it was under a certain size, and their limit was 10 kilos.
8 kilos with the carrier.
8 kilos with everything. So basically it was like a carry-on size carrier that weighed less than 8 kilos with everything in it, including the pet. So, she was 3 kilos. And and the rest of her stuff didn't weigh that much. So that was one of the reasons why we chose it. We could have gotten a cheaper flight. We could have gotten maybe a nicer airline, but this was the one that allowed us to do that. But I thought it was really nice. I hadn't flown international for probably Mila's
7 years ago.
9, and she was 2. Yeah, probably a little more than 7 years ago. Wow. And a lot of things have changed in 7 years. Every seat has like a really nice entertainment system. Back in the day, everybody had to watch the same movie that came on. Now you can like
You're
pick.
so dating yourself.
I'm so old.
We had our own TVs when we
had
flew
our own
to Croatia
TVs
last time. But now we had our own like charger in next to the TV, and our headphone jack was next to the TV instead of like in the armrest.
Yeah.
So that was different.
So what did you guys think about the flying experience? Besides it being long, because Mila, you said you didn't sleep at all, but you also watched 4 movies in 8 hours by choice.
You played your iPad.
Most of it was movies.
Yeah. What else did you think? What did you think about the food? What did you think about your seats? Were they comfortable?
The food wasn't that good.
Do you remember what we had?
We had meat.
Yeah.
A dessert thing.
Yeah.
Brownie dessert thing. Some salad. Salad that I didn't eat.
Yeah, I had like 6 salads.
Because we gave it to you.
Did you eat the neighbor salad too? Because there's only 5 trays.
No, because there were 2 meals. Okay, Mila.
Can I say something about the second flight?
Sure. Oh, wait, we're not on the second flight yet. When we get to the second flight, we'll tell you. So what else about the first flight? Oh, they don't have free soft drinks anymore. You have to pay for everything.
You get one per meal. So.
Yeah, and coffee and tea.
I didn't get a pick for my second meal. They just gave me like this apple juice. They gave me this applesauce cup filled with orange juice.
Oh yeah,
yeah, everybody got that.
You didn't get to pick for the second one. Yes, Mila.
What did we have when it was breakfast time?
For breakfast? It wasn't like a breakfast.
It was like ham and cheese with a bread roll.
And that bread was the good bread on there, and the second bread was had like nuts things in it.
Yeah, like maybe seeds.
Oh yeah, probably.
And like seeds, seeds baked on top.
Sesame seed.
No.
Oh yeah, it's like a Big Mac.
Daddy,
no, it was not a Big Mac.
I cut mine, and then instead of putting it in, I cut like my biscuit thing, bread, and instead of putting it in that sandwich, I put it in the biscuit. There was Swiss cheese and like ham. I put it in there instead.
Wait! I remember something. I remember they gave you like crackers.
Oh yeah, they gave you crackers.
Yeah, those were good.
Little snacks.
And there was like a really good broccoli.
And even though they give kids coffee creamer.
Luca loves broccoli. Especially broccoli from one restaurant.
Pan.
This episode sponsored by Panda Express. We wish.
Yeah. Unlimited broccoli beef
for Luca.
For life.
But just the broccoli.
Yeah.
But just
hold
the
beef.
Hold the beef.
And Daddy wishes it was sponsored by In-N-Out.
I wish.
So we made it off that flight, 8 hours, and we had quite the layover in Copenhagen.
Yeah, we left Dulles around dinner time, and it was an 8-hour flight. We actually got there a little bit earlier, like 7 hours and change. And is that right? Because by the time we got there, it was like 7 a.m. local time in Copenhagen.
Our pilot was speeding a little bit.
So it was like, what was it? It was like 3 o'clock in the morning for us. Mm-hmm. And everybody was like just waking up. They're drinking coffee. And we hadn't slept. And I'm just walking around thinking, I could use a beer right now, but is it going to look weird that I'm drinking beer at an airport at 8 o'clock in the morning to all these people?
No.
But we didn't. We had like 4 hours to burn, right? So we had to find a place in the Copenhagen International Airport to kind of hang out and stay. But a couple of things about the Copenhagen Airport that I didn't like. Number one is there aren't that many places that you can kind of sit and relax comfortably. So we walked around. There were tons of shops, tons of restaurants, tons of places to like spend money, but there weren't places to shop. And we were really concerned with Yoda, so we had her with us too in the carrier. She didn't make any sounds at all the whole flight, but you know, we could tell like she was not feeling good. You know, like the whole flight took a bit of a toll on her, I think. But we checked on her every couple hours, and while we're at the airport, you know, we kind of corralled her with our luggage and our carry-on luggage in certain areas and we let her out, and she would kind of come out and look around, sniff around, and then more or less just kind of lay down and relax. We gave her some more space. But the second thing I didn't like about the Copenhagen airport, or maybe that's just sort of how some airports are now these days, is that the gate assignments for connecting flights took forever to be decided. It seemed like in our 4-hour layover, we didn't get our gate assignment until like the hour before our flight. So we basically had to figure out where to be, carrying all of our stuff, and we ended up being at the wrong terminal when it finally got assigned, and then we had to walk all the way across the airport. And then when we got to the next place, everybody else was showing up, and the previous flight was just taken off. So we had to wait. We were standing around, haven't slept in I don't know how long. By this time, it was like 12 o'clock. It was noon local time, it was probably like 8 a.m. the next day for us. None of us have slept. So we waited to get on the next flight, which was a small plane, but it wasn't like a turboprop or anything. It was like a Bombardier, you know.
But to go back to
commuter jet.
Yoda, as soon as we got off the flight, my goal was to find a private family restroom. And they didn't really have one, but they had baby changing rooms, which is like a changing table, a sink, and a trash can. Yeah. So I took over one of those at the airport, and I had a collapsible litter box. That was made out of like a polyester plastic foldable thing, and I filled it with litter. And I took her out, and her walking, her legs were not doing as well. She was having trouble, and I tried to get her in the litter box, and then by the time she didn't want to go in the litter box, and I picked her up, and she urinated on the floor, and she didn't want to eat, she didn't want to drink, she just wanted to lay down, and so I spent some time with her in there, try to get her to eat or drink, and she didn't want to, and so that's when I took her back out, and we made little corrals for her around the airport while we waited to give her more space. But she really didn't want to move around.
But we had seen her do this before, actually, weeks ago, when we first noticed that her condition had deteriorated back in Kansas. We were driving across, and that was when we first realized that, you know, this is really on the edge. Like, we had known that her health conditions had been deteriorating over the last few years. Every year we take her in for blood work, and for the last 2 or 3 years, the vet had been telling us, yeah, she's got, you know, the early stages of kidney failure. So we always knew that something like this was going to come eventually. But it was in Kansas when we finally realized something was really wrong, because she hadn't eaten a lot, she hadn't drank a lot, and she was really dehydrated. We could feel like her vertebra, like the ridges of her vertebrae was like really pronounced on her back when you pet her. And it was never like that before. She was never like an overweight cat, except for maybe, you know, a couple years in her teenage years.
Yeah.
But she got really small. So we actually thought back in Kansas that, you know, this had been it. But from that, she sort of bounced back.
Yeah, she kept taking 2 steps back and then 1 step forward. 2 steps back, 1 step forward. And that just has been going on for the past, I don't know, how long has that been? 6 weeks, 2 months? Where it's that same kind of pattern where it's like, oh, she's doing really bad today, and then she kind of perks up. We're like, there's nothing we can't put her down if she's perking up.
Yeah.
She's not going downhill. She's just back and forth, but not back to the same level, but still looking comfortable. Just old. Right. She's old.
Old.
She's 16,
and even,
she's old.
Even when we took her to the vet in Alexandria, Virginia, to get her health certificate, the vet there said, yeah, she's got some problems, but there's no reason I don't see there's any reason why she couldn't live for another year or two if you guys manage her conditions. So I don't know, maybe the doctor just didn't know the history as well, or have seen, you know, this kind of, you know, 1 step forward, 2 step back condition that we've been experiencing. But yeah, we noticed when we got off, you know, things weren't looking as good. She had maybe taken 3 steps back at the time. But we were just happy, though, that she was here with us, that she wasn't left behind with some stranger.
That was our main goal, is to make sure she was with us. We knew she was going downhill. We knew her time was coming.
Yeah.
But we wanted her to be with us, so when the end happened, she would be more at ease.
Right. And when we finally were able to board the flight, which flew us from Copenhagen to Brussels, Brussels, Belgium, it was about a 4-hour flight. No, it was about a 2-hour flight. Yeah. We made it in like an hour and 30 minutes, hour and 20 minutes. It had really caught up to us at that time. I think we all slept.
You guys all fell asleep before the plane even took off.
Wait.
Mila remembers something from that flight.
Are you talking about the second flight?
Oh, yeah, the second flight. What were we going to say?
Flight.
Where I lost my jacket.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
So I had to buy a new one. That flight was more comfortable than the last one.
The second flight was more comfortable?
Yeah, because these were more comfortable.
Oh. Or maybe you're just way more tired.
Yeah.
It's easier to fall asleep.
Last flight, it was like, the seat was so like back.
Yeah.
I had to like put a pillow there.
It leaned back too far? Oh, you mean your lower back. You needed some lumbar support. Yeah. Or I think you just weren't tired enough and there were too many things to do. On that second flight, there was nothing to do. You were really tired. You guys passed out. I mean, I slept for a while, and I think Marlene had a moment with one of our neighboring passengers on the flight.
Yeah, I looked at her. I heard a sound, and then I looked at her, and she looked at me, and we both realized Dan was snoring in the back row. We both giggled.
We were all the way in the back, at the very back of the airplane.
Yes, Mila?
I was so tired I forgot my jacket.
You sure did, and I saw a picture, and that blue jacket was tucked in between you and Daddy.
Oh, yeah.
And you guys are so tired.
Yeah.
We forgot about it.
You guys, let's get off
They
this
were
plane.
so lazy.
Well, it was really hot. It was really hot in Virginia and Maryland. We were not wearing jackets, but we knew before we packed our stuff for the transition when we dropped our van off, and now that it's going to get cold, and I think it got a little bit cold in Virginia towards the last couple days, and it's definitely gotten cold here in Belgium these last 2 days. So we're glad to have jackets, but Mila lost hers. Luckily, we were able to walk to an H&M here in Austin. Not Austin. Ostend, Belgium.
Austin, Belgium.
Yeah.
Austin,
We got her
Belgium.
a nice, fluffy, sheep-looking jacket.
And the inside was littly.
The inside wasn't even fluffy.
No.
No, just outside?
Yeah. But it would be weird if it was fluffy on the inside.
Yeah.
It may not be comfortable if it was too fluffy.
Yeah.
Yeah, may not.
So when we got to Brussels, our trip wasn't done yet. So at this point, we had been awake for, I don't even know how long. I know in total, until from when we left the hotel until we stepped foot inside this Airbnb, we were awake for like 27, 28 hours. So when we got to Brussels, we went through customs, and here's the funny thing. We went through a lot of documentation, certification, tests, getting ready so that Yoda could travel, and not a single person asked to see anything.
Nothing.
Nothing. Nobody at customs. The people, we had to pay for her as basically, they charge $150, I think.
$115.
$115? Okay, so it was not much more than like an extra piece of luggage for the flights, for both flights. They didn't ask to see the documents there. Through customs, they didn't ask to see documents there. On the second flight, they just asked, because I think they saw on their sheet, and whatever their paperwork for each flight, that we were carrying a pet. So they came to ask if we had our pet, and we were like, yeah, she's right here. That's it. No documents were asked for us to display, and all the way through, So I'm not saying that you guys, if you guys are going to travel with your pet, to not bother. Definitely should get them, because they may ask, and if they ask, you don't want that to be the reason why you get turned away. So when we got to Brussels, we went all the way through, and we headed straight down to the train. And the train station at Brussels is like below ground. It's kind of a subway, and we had to figure out how to buy tickets. We were super tired. We didn't know how to work the train system, but luckily, pretty much everybody that we've encountered, except for the lady that checked us into this Airbnb, spoke English. So luckily, the ticket agent down at the train station spoke English. Parents, the adults had to pay, and kids under 12 ride free. So to ride a train from Brussels all the way to Ostend, I think was like 25 euros per adult.
Yeah.
So it was like 50 something euros for all of us to ride the train all the way here. And when we got here, we've been in communications with our Airbnb host, and he doesn't live here. His mother-in-law was here waiting for us, so she lives like 15 minutes away. She had to come here and wait for us. So we figured out how to get on the tram. That took us like 2 or 3 stops away from where the train drops us off. And then from there, we walked about 300 meters from where the tram dropped us off to the front door. We came here. She showed us how to do everything, and we just like crashed.
But the funny part that we skipped over is that second flight, you guys all passed out. And that created a crazy domino effect of the kids sleeping on the ground and crying and walking. So, like, we got off the airplane, like, we had to go pee right away. Luca lay down on the ground in front of the bathroom and passed out. We couldn't wake him up. And then we had to carry all our bags to the train station, train area. Dan's trying to figure out tickets. All 3 kids are passed out on our luggage, sleeping on the ground. Then we go on the train, they pass out, and we're like, okay, time to change trains. And they can't wake up. Wake up! Wake up!
And they're not little enough for us to carry them anymore.
And we have all this luggage, you know, it's way too much luggage and the kids need to participate in carrying our luggage. So then, like, we had 3 different train stops. At one point, Luca was on the escalator, his eyes closed, and he fell asleep in the middle of the escalator. And I say his name, and he jumps up. And I'm like, Luca, keep walking. And it was just so sad. Luca was so mad at me for making him walk. How dare I? Were you mad, buddy?
I was those escalator floors.
I can't hear you.
I was those escalator floors.
Oh, you want escalator floors everywhere?
Yeah, there wasn't even escalator floors at the airport.
Mila, if you're going to talk, you got to come closer.
Yeah.
I can't just be lazy on the bed.
Yeah.
There wasn't even escalator floors at that airport.
There's only
There-
one escalator.
There was an escalator floor. It's where we, at the first airport where we sat and waited. Remember, there was this, the kids like, you know, at the airport they have these like people movers. People moving escalators that doesn't go up or down. They just go straight. You just stand on it and it moves. Yeah.
When I think it was when we got off the second flight, we were when we were getting on the first flight.
I think it was the fourth.
We got Wendy's and then
Yeah, we got Wendy's.
no, there was
Right?
and
in
then
Dulles.
and then there
Oh,
was
Dulles, we got
no,
Wendy's.
there was I don't think it was when we got Wendy's.
We
It was
definitely got
when
Wendy's.
I said I don't think it was when that happened. I think when I think before we went on the second flight, I think I saw escalator floors. We didn't even get it going.
No, we were too tired.
Didn't even
I
get
wasn't gonna find going on it.
That was after the first flight. We sat down on a wall and there's some escalator floors so we couldn't go.
Yeah, I was in Copenhagen.
And we were getting on the fourth flight. We got Wendy's.
What did we see when we got off the first flight and we were in Europe for the first time together? What store did you see?
7-Eleven.
You never let us go to 7-Eleven.
Yeah, there's a 7-Eleven at the international terminal before the passport check.
Yeah, we like prep the kids like, okay, this is the last time we're going to see 7-Elevens, the last time we're going to see Panda Express.
And we didn't
for a
even
walk.
get to go.
And the funny thing is, as soon as we get off the first flight, Luca spots a 7-Eleven. And as soon as we get to this Airbnb, he's like, there's a guy on a Domino scooter delivering pizzas. I'm like, okay, so maybe the United States leaked into Europe a little bit.
Just a little bit. Just a little bit.
Or a lot.
I've never
Oh, I
seen
love
a
it.
Domino scooter.
Yeah, so I think our mistake, we probably, to avoid the whole like sleeping on the floor shenanigan, I don't think it would have been possible. We probably should have forced us to just stay awake on the flight, because you guys know how it is. When you're really tired and you go down hard. You can't just say, I haven't slept for 25 hours. I'm just going to take a 10-minute nap. There is no such a thing. So the hour and 20-minute flight is what did us in. But we got here. We took a total of I think 7 different modes of transportation. Mm-hmm. Right? So from the airport, we took a shuttle to the airport. And then the second one is the first flight. And then third is the second flight, right?
You missed a little train connection between terminals in
Washington,
D.C. That's what
right. So I had to take a little inter-airport train to go from one terminal to another. So that was 2. And then 3 was the first flight. And then 4 was the second flight. Mm-hmm. And then 5 was...
First train out of the airport.
And then 6 was the connecting train that we had to take at a town between Brussels and Ostend. And then 7 was the tram that we had to take to get here to this Airbnb. And then we walked. So it was a long day. But for the last 5 days, we've been in Ostend. First 2.5 days, 3 days, we, had to go through the situation we had with Yoda, and it was something that had to happen, and we had to figure out how to deal with it, and it was difficult. It would have been difficult anywhere, but it made it especially difficult because we're in a foreign country that we've never been to, and we had to learn a lot of things about, how stuff like this is handled here. But that's behind us, and we're now basically ready for our next phase, which is in 3 days, we'll go pick up our van, and we'll start traveling Europe.
We can talk about Yoda? Is it too sad?
Too sad. No, we're not live.
We can talk about Yoda another day.
No.
Or we can just sprinkle stories of Yoda into all these podcasts.
Pause. I need to get some water.
Okay. We don't have to pause.
But it might sound like somebody's.
It's okay. So Ava's getting water.
She's not peeing.
Okay. But I think this is sort of the end of this episode. We're coming up on about 48 minutes or so. But I want to thank you guys for listening. If you're still listening, we appreciate you following us. We appreciate you being interested in our story. And on the next episode, I think we will be sharing with you guys a lot more about the van shipping, the vehicle shipping process, and things that we'll look forward to. When we get the van, our plan currently right now is to more or less head straight towards Croatia, which is a pretty far drive. But the reason why we have to do that is Marlene and the kids have Croatian citizenship, which is part of the EU. So they don't need to have extended stay visas or anything like that. Whereas myself, I'm limited to 90 days before I have to leave and come back. There's a lot of special restrictions for U.S. travelers in the EU that want to stay for an extended period of time. So we figured the best course of action is for us to all go to Croatia, where Marlene has citizenship, and through her I can apply for temporary residency as a spouse. So that's why we're going straight there. And also the other reason too is our friends Jason and Angela from Bodeswell, they are in Croatia, and they're probably heading back to the U.S. in a month or so, so we're going to try to hang out with them for the time being while they're still there.
And if you're not watching, you're missing all of this.
But they're probably watching it right now, hearing you.
Yeah.
Don't skip ahead.
Well, this is just audio. They can't watch this podcast. They're just listening.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Yeah. But let us know what you guys think. What topics would you like us to cover? And also, would you guys want to see this podcast also upload it in video form on YouTube. Is that something worthwhile doing? But either way, we're gonna continue on with another episode probably in about a week. So again, thank you guys for listening. We appreciate your support. And if you are not subscribed to this podcast, once again, you can go to mollymish.com/podcast, and there'll be different ways to subscribe depending on what devices you're on. If you're not following us on Instagram, we're at instagram.com/molly.mish, facebook.com/mollymish, and on YouTube, we're at youtube.com/mollymish.
Sí, señor.
We really should learn Dutch or French or something at some point.
Oui.
Yes. Oui.
Voila.
Oui.
Merci.
All right. I think that's our sign to go.
Okay.
Everybody say bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening.
Bye, podcast listeners. Bye. Hope you guys have a good day. Or if it's night, have a good night. If it's your bedtime.